or we can consider this part two of trying to put the water crisis that's really an emergency water crisis on the planet into sort of a quick into a short form so you get the basics. Okay, here's the situation. Okay, many of the world's industries, and particularly the ones that are operating at like the transnational level, are water intensive to begin with, and we're using an incredible amount of water for a long time. So, for example, it takes many gallons and gallons of water to manufacture a car. Computer manufacturing uses massive quantities of this kind of fresh water in the process of making computers. Um, just in the United States, industry uses billions of liters of water in the manufacture of all kinds of things. That was a problem and something that was concerned about how much water they're wasting. And then on the transnational scene, there appeared these massive agricultural capital formations, one of which is based here, called Monsanto, but has offices all over the world. And all of a sudden, their model of their basically the methodology and model of their business, which is sort of called industrial agriculture or industrial farming. Okay, incredible amounts of water are being used in this particular process of growing crops, and growing some crops to feed the animals they slaughter and growing some for sale. They are now officially overusing and wasting water at an incredibly alarming rate. Okay, these are the farming practices of the transnational corporations subsidized by governments um, in the agro sector. Okay, they're unlike any normal corporation simply by their size and the fact that they're transnational, and the fact that who makes the rules for them are global institutions and not governments. Well, what are the effects of it? Well, we could talk about the death toll in the global south, but to make it more real in the sense of something more close to home, the effect is this: water levels, for example, of the Great Lakes are now at record lows. Every major body of water that like one would be familiar with as like a Great Lake or something is starting to disappear. Okay, that's alarming, but it's alarming because of the amount of people dying around the world because of lack of access to water. But it's happened so fast, and it's happened at the transnational sector, and the rules are set not by governments, not by the market, not by anything other than these global institutions like the World Trade Organization that aren't really there to discipline corporations this big, but simply to facilitate what they want to do. Very often, what they're doing is ordering governments to remove blocks on any kind of block on how much of the water supply of the place they can divert into these different kinds of industrial agriculture. That is a specific way of doing agricultural business, crop growing, farming, raising livestock, that is wasting and overusing water simply too fast, and faster than would ever have been expected, but it's causing droughts everywhere. And the fact that it's reached the industrialized world already means that it's an emergency. These global institutions that empower these transnational corporations to do this, what empowers it is the language in these free trade agreements, and some of which came out of what's called the Washington Consensus, based on a sort of ideological picture of a world where everything is sort of privatized, or where things are all done on a large scale. But the problem is when they're empowered to act in ways that simply violate any known sense of sanity with regard to what a capital formation can do, they're empowered to do things like take all the water from an area so that people are dying of thirst, and there's no solution for that, and water is finite. Water is finite. This has to be addressed, but it can't be addressed just by activists. It has to be known by different sectors of industry that there are these agro businesses using practices operating at the transnational sector with no rules except things that normal corporations can't do. They can no longer be allowed to waste 70% of the world's water simply because of this model they have of agriculture on a mass scale, because this many people dying means that in the future we will also here be out of water. But in general, we have to find a way to discipline these type of capital formations, because when they're doing this, it means they have no respect for human life. If the UN declares water a human right, they'll still keep doing this. But what we have to do is make people aware that these type of corporations that are using these practices, that it's gone too far and has nothing to do with what we usually argue about here, regulation versus deregulation of business. This is something that's going to cause the death of the planet. It's destabilizing the climate. It's creating droughts. It's causing the deaths of millions and millions of children. There are people all over the world in the millions who don't have access to clean water to drink. This is all because of the practices of these large transnationals in the agro sector. Already, industry was wasting a lot of water. This has to be stopped, and the way to stop it is for everyone to be aware that it's happening.